Today, more and more people and tech bootcamp companies advertise QA engineer profession or software engineer as the easiest and fastest way to work in tech industry. Is it really that good, or is everything what they say is true? Of course it's not. Software tester profession, as any other profession, of course, it has its own drawbacks, and it may not be suitable for you, and maybe you shouldn't waste your time trying to become a QA engineer. So let's find out why QA engineer or software tester may not be for you. Okay, so the first reason why you should not become QA engineer, well, it's pretty obvious, but since you will start to work in tech, and what all the people do who work in tech, you will have to work in front of your desktop or laptop 8 hours a day. I know it's pretty obvious, and probably you watching this video already working 8 hours a day in front of your desktop, but it's not suitable for everyone, right? So for example, in my career, when I started to work as a QA engineer, well, for me, I found my first QA engineer job when I was still in university. I found it in the summer. So my idea was during summertime, I will work full-time, 8 hours a day. And in the fall, when I will continue my education, it will become as a part-time job. So before, I never worked 8 hours in front of the computer. For me, it was really challenging. I remember my first day when I came to work, I sat in front of my working laptop. I was going through all of this like boring onboarding stuff. So I started to test application, and I was exhausted. It was like really hard. Like after a couple hours, I was so tired. I was waiting until the lunch break. I was waiting until I will get off and go back to home. After this day finished, I was so exhausted. I was walking home and I was thinking like, wow, like it was really hard, and will it really become my career in the future? Like, will I have to every day go to work and sit 8 hours in front of computer? Like, I can imagine that. It doesn't seem like a dream job, and you can imagine I was really upset because of that. But I still to give it a chance anyway, and after a week or maybe a couple of weeks, I get used to it. And I think what helps me is because I was really interested in profession. It was a lot of cool things to do at work. I was so exciting to find bugs. I got really involved because for me it was really interesting. And I think the key point here, not to get bored, and was able to handle it if you have like something interesting to do at your work. If you will just sit and you will go through the onboarding and like boring documentations, you will be burned out only because of that, at least in my case. Maybe because at that time I was around 21, 22 and I had a lot of energy, maybe because of that. But anyway, you have to take into consideration that you will have to work 8 hours a day in front of your laptop. It's not that bad and it's pretty obvious, but you have to take into consideration maybe it's not really suited for you. If you still want to become a QA engineer or SDET, or maybe learn any other tech profession, I will invite you for a Test Pro free open house. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can attend it, learn about different professions in tech, to see how much demand, to see how much salaries, and also figure out what exactly you will do as a QA engineer. So please sign up in the link in the description and attend Test Pro open house. The second reason, which comes from the first reason actually, so it's not kind of jobs that you will have to do with your hands, right? What I mean by that. So I have a lot of friends, a lot of people who I know, even though like most of my friends, they become QA engineers following my advices and they're really happy doing QA job. But I also have friends who doesn't want to become a QA engineer and they don't want to work in tech in general. Why? Because they prefer to work with their hands. So they work as mechanics, they work as a repair specialist, they work in construction, they're building like a lot of cool stuff, like musicians, for example, right? So with that being said, if you will work as a QA engineers, your hands will be mostly occupied with a mouse and a keyboard. So if it will be a problem, maybe a software engineer job is not for you. So other reason, you have to pay attention to the details. Of course, you probably know like what software testers do. They're testing software, right? And while you're testing a software, you have to pay maximum attention to any details, to all of these like typos and maybe even font differences, right, which really hard to catch even for myself, because it was really challenging to determine if fonts is not matching what says in the requirements. I mean, you should see more narrowed than developers, because pretty much you're finding their mistakes. I mean, because of that, you will have to report all different kind of bugs, like this typo bugs or like this like small visual bugs. It's really easy to detect once you get used to it. But again, if you're not this kind of person who like to pay attention to the details, if you can't really concentrate, maybe this job is not going to be for you. Okay, the other reason maybe is not that obvious before you will start as a QA engineer, but pretty much QA engineers, they filling the gap between product managers and developers, right? So what do I mean by that? Usually product managers or business analysts or product owners, they are people who creating requirements, right? So they basically saying like how software should look like, right? Or how it should function or how it should behave. And developers, they pretty much execute what product people tell them, right? Most of the defects happens because of misunderstanding between devs and product managers, right? So maybe product manager didn't write requirements clearly and developer understood it differently. And pretty much your job just to make sure if you see some weird behavior in a software and in requirements, it not clearly says how it should behave. You need to communicate with product manager and ask him like, hey, is this really what you wanted? Or like, what do you mean when you said that in requirements, right? Could you please be more clear or specify what exactly you want to see? And we will avoid this issue with miscommunication with devs. And also you will need to talk to developers a lot. And you will also need to talk to software engineers as well. And pretty much, as I said, you're filling this gap between software engineers and product managers. And also usually, like from my observation, software engineers, many of them, they don't really like communicate a lot, right? They prefer to sit in code all day. They don't want to like solve the problem with product managers. They usually have this attitude. Okay, if you said to do that, I will do that, no problem. But if you said one thing and created in requirements different thing, it's not my problem, it's your problem, right? Because I'm pretty much develop what you said. And usually our job, so because we're working not in the interest of product managers and developers, right? So we work in the interests of the final users, right? So we pretty much need, sometimes we should not agree with product managers if we, as a software testers, don't really agree that it's going to be the best behavior. And sometimes we have to argue with developers and proving them that it's actually a bug, right? Not a feature. Because of that, QA engineer job involves a lot of communication with devs and product managers. So if you're kind of introvert and don't like to talk to people, maybe this job is not suitable for you. Well, in other hand, I can tell that I am really introvert and I don't like to talk to people. For some reason, it wasn't a problem at work, because at work, I usually like to talk to product managers, talk to developers, because I really wanted to deliver a good quality product, right? And I really enjoyed it. And for me, it wasn't a problem to talk to them at work. I was really communicative at work. So again, if you think you're not that communicative person, that may not be a problem at all. So other reason, usually if you want to work in tech and you're considering career in software development or in software testing, you should take to consideration that in the beginning, once you start to work, usually you're getting paid as a software tester about 20% less than you would have been paid as a developer. So for example, if in a starting position as a software developer, you can get the salary, for example, on 100K per year. If you will find a job as a software tester, you can get like 20% more, 20% less, about 80K per year. It's not that much of the difference, comparing that to become a QA engineer, you will have to spend much less time in education, right? As I mentioned, you can become a software tester in a couple of months. If you want to become a software engineer, it will probably take you at least a year before you will be ready to look for a job. Well, but I can tell you, once you become like more senior software tester, or if you want to work in a QA automation, or maybe work as a SDET, pretty much you will get the same salary level as a developer, right? But in the beginning of your career, in your first job, you can expect lower salaries than developers. So just be mindful of that. Okay guys, that's my reasons why QA engineer job may not be suitable for you. And of course, it's not suitable for anyone. But again, if we compare our job with developers, software engineers, DevOps engineers, and any other profession, I still believe that QA engineer job is the easiest one, most exciting one, in my opinion, at least for starters, right? So, but again, it's for you to decide if you want to become a QA engineer or not. I mean, of course, in the beginning of career transition, we have our doubts, but I mean, again, it never hurt to try and see if you will like it or not. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Leave your comments if you agree with something or don't agree. If you really enjoyed this video, please press like button and I will see you in my next videos. Bye.